Can you see, Dr. Varprasad? Can you see the presentation?
Yes, sir, we are able to see.
Yeah, thank you. So, very good afternoon, everyone. Respected chairpersons, teachers, and my dear friends. Firstly, I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to share some of my thoughts on fixation in osteoporotic fractures, which is a very common condition all of us will see about. Osteoporotic spinal fractures are often overlooked, they are missed, and often leading to painful condition of the spine and disabling deformities. And once they have been missed out, it will be very difficult a challenge to treat them. More so, currently there are no definitive treatment algorithms in the management of osteoporotic spinal fractures. They are further challenged by elderly age of this patient, their comorbidities, high tendency of the instrumentation failure, leading to pull-out, subsidence, and requiring a revision surgery. So the other further challenges are like very times they come in a multiple fractures, sometimes non-contiguous multiple fractures. They require a long surgery, and with other challenges with surgeries. So this is one of the things I've taken from the literature. So this very many times they have been elderly, at the same time they require a very long fixation. So how about a short fixation? If you do a short fixation, these things may hold on for a while, but we see like in this patient is a 70-year-old, there's a partial pullout of the proximal screw with the subcutaneous prominence of the screws. The short segment fixation in especially in osteoporotic, there is a chance of failure. So the instrumentation failure can be early or late. These are so it can be very challenging. So the goals of patients with osteoporotic fractures would be you should have a rigid fixation with as many points of anchorage as possible, and you need a good fusion technique of decortication and make them ambulant at the earliest, so that early ambulation only is the only way to treat osteoporosis. And you in select patients you may require even a good bone substitutes or even a bone morphogenic BMP also to promote an early fusion in these patients. So there are several biomechanical considerations which you have to understand before you plan for this patient. Pull-out strength is a strength, what is a constant axial force that is applied to dislodge a screw in laboratory conditions. And a pull-out force is a force required to dislodge a screw. Both of these have been significantly reduced in osteoporosis. So with deeper threads or a larger pitch, longer screws, larger screws with biparticle purchase, the pull-out strength can be greatly increased. The maximum insertional torque of the pedicle is correlated with bone BMD. So it's very important that you understand that we have challenges in these patients. So ideally, use a multiple points of fixation with the loads applied to the individual screws. The stiffness of the construct is significantly increased. So the most important thing to understand in the success of implant is to how we can improve the bone implant surface. That is a fundamental to have a good fixation. How well they can hold on there. So it has been found that conical screws are found to be better. The advantage with the conical screw, especially is in osteoporosis, the pull-out strength is much better. But however, if the screw once it is being placed, if you back it out or turn it back, the fixation ability will be lost. So expandable screws have been reported since early to last few decades, and they've been found to have a wonderful kind of a pull-out strength in these patients. And the big challenge in this patient is osteoporosis is because of the limited strength of the bone and the bone implant interface. The anchors may not be able to allow strong compression, distraction, or rotations once it is in place to correct a deformity. So to aid it, different kinds of cement can be useful to improve the pull-out strength of these patients. So when do you need surgery in osteoporosis? Because very many times once they have been detected early, you can possibly treat them with medical means in more than 95% of the patients. However, When somebody has a severe osteoporosis, somebody has a severe unstable fracture, severe compression burst fracture, neurological deficits, already a failed vertebroplasty or kyphoplasty, uh, they may need surgery. Sometimes a patient may not like to have a limited kind of a mobility for few months. That can be used about. The important thing, however, to understand for an indication for surgery is the spinal instability. The spinal instability in the sense somebody who has a persistent back pain or a deformity, um, these people may suggest a spinal instability together with extent of bone destruction or ligamentous injury on imaging can roughly can give us about an indication which patient may require surgery. So there are several techniques how we can improve the fixation by screw design, insertional technique, and other means. The most important is an insertional technique what we use in this patient. You make a so the important is a screw design. So then compared to a normal standard screw, if it's a conical screw, it is found to have a better kind of a pull-out strength. And off late, even the Medtronic and other companies have come out with the double screws, which has a normal screw, which is with the cancellous bone, whereas the pedicle part of it, you have different kind of a threading. It is found to have a better kind of a pull-out strength. Cannulated screw, which has been hollow inside with the holes inside of the proximal part of it, it can help us to have a cementing of the bone is found to be very useful. Hydroxyapatite coated screws, they have a better biological integration with the bone matrix, with the screw matrix, have been found to be useful. Expandable screws have been mostly been tried in Europe and some parts of the US. They have been all again found to be very useful. So how do you basically improve your fixation techniques? The best thing is you have a under tap the thing or don't tap the osteoporotic bone. Even if you tap it with a undersized tap, maybe holding on for maybe for a couple of turns or at the max a centimeter or so that the pull-out strength of the screw can be quite high. So when the screw orientation is tried to be like a triangulation, it has been found that whenever there is a triangulation with a medial orientation, the medial part of the bone between the screws is found to increase the pull-out strength. And similarly, compared to a normal parallel orientation or a caudal orientation, cranial orientation of the screws avoid an increased bending arm of these portions and ultimately found to be more useful. So So whenever I basically use a small bonal at this patients to start with, and if possible, whenever you use it, don't need to tap even the entire part of the bone. Even with when you use the bonal, you try to use only the bonal only up to the posterior part of the bone. Then rest of the thing you can directly start screwing it because these patients have a bone is very soft. And compared to the convention, don't try to avoid hubbing of the screw head or the entry point. And very often I try to use a cross link with the construct is been especially longer, and uh, always can use a osteoconductive material like a tricalcium phosphate or even sometimes to aid the fusion with a BMP. So the best point of insertion has been found by Raikemel is the junction where the superior articular facet, the pars interarticularis and the transverse process meet. There is the strongest point that is being called as a force nucleus. This is the best point, especially can be marked out in all lumbar spines. It is the best point for best biomechanical strength. So these surgical techniques are basically are posterior techniques, and there are different techniques whether you use a short segment where is one segment above and below the fracture or long segment, two or more segments above the fracture, maybe with the cement augmentation with the PMPA or a calcium phosphate, and it may also require a fixation of the fractured vertebrae for better correction of the deformity or expandable screws. However, the same techniques can be done even with a percutaneous fixation with or without um, polymethyl methacrylate augmentation. So anterior fixation and decompression have been tried, and sometimes, especially in the severe fractures with instability, combined techniques, anterior and posterior with osteotomy, or with a percutaneous procedure like vertebroplasty and kyphoplasty has been found to be useful. So by gold standard, most patients, especially is unstable, they require a long segment fixation, especially in the presence of deformity. They have a better can have a better correction of the deformities, and crosslinks can be very useful to prevent the rotational forces and implant failure. So this is one of my patients who had a quadriparesis with a T12 fracture, and he has an excellent relief, excellent improvement of the neurological status, including bowel bladder symptoms. Another of this patient has a multiple contiguous fractures, and they had a long segment fixation with an excellent results. And preoperative CT can be very, very useful to understand and estimate the possible length of the screw. However, no attempt should be made to have a bicortical purchase in these patients. So in some elderly patients, even you can try this long segment fixation along with the bone cementing, and so that the pull-out strength is being improved and there's a less chance of instrumentation failure. And same thing can even do with the hydroxy coated screws, which have been useful. And very many times these patients, they require, because associated with neurological deficit, they require a coexistent decompression. So whether it is when somebody has a does not have a gross compression or something, a simple percutaneous technique, short segment fixation can be useful. And this patient, as preferred, is a policeman, does not want to hold for a long time, and with the multiple comorbidities like diabetes, hypertension, and other things, and we can do this procedure with a short period of recovery. So short segment fixation has been found by several studies to be useful, can be comfortably done. As Lu et al. Has shown in 46 patients with a follow-up of around 20 months, it's been safe and efficacious with no instrumentation failure. And even in patients who have a thoracolumbar fracture with neurological deficit, few studies have shown that this is one study by Cheng et al. With 20 patients with follow-up of 40 months, though major ligamentous disruptions or major dislocations have been excluded, in this patient, a short segment fixation has found to be very helpful. However, if you see in patients who have a low lumbar or lumbar fractures, the complication rate is quite high compared to the thoracic fractures, because the support of the thoracic cage is being lost. And in this study with around 38 patients, Kohana et al. Have found an instrumentation failure of 37% and a vertebral collapse of 27% in a follow-up of 3 months. All these patients in the lumbar fractures are presented with radiculopathy. So, however, these patients ideally require a good augmentation technique, so that because the loads in the lumbar spine are quite different and otherwise compared to the thoracic spine. So, how about a meta-analysis of systemic review have shown out of 1,831 studies, 32 are found to be eligible, and 19 have presented a screw loosening rate in patients with osteoporotic fractures. It has been found that screw loosening is around 22.5% in augmented screws and 2.2 with augmented screws with cement. So it's like it tells about grossly that the complication rate or instrumentation failure is almost 1 in 5 patients can have a failure of the construct. So screw augmentation could be very useful, and a repeat surgery, a revision surgery is very, very challenging in these patients. So, however, some patients, when are the chances that a short segment fixation can fail? It has been found is one of the only literature that has been reported by Formica et al. They tried to study what are the risk factors for local kyphosis and a failure of a short segment fixation. They found that the smoking habit, sex, age, neurological status are not related to loss of correction as a screw failure. And they found that obese patients with BMI more than 30 has found to have a high risk of local kyphotic collapse after short segment fixation. So it's better especially in obese patient to have a long segment fixations. Short segment fixation can be combined sometimes even with a vertebroplasty, like in this patient. Sometimes you can even combine this with vertebroplasty and cemented screws. this is what the short segments, the literature wise, it has been shown that the short segment fixation, when combined with kyphoplasty or vertebroplasty, has found to have a significant success rates. As studied by Korovisi et al., they found in 21 patients, the follow-up of 1 year, they've reported no instrumentation failure and a better correction of the kyphosis. So this is one of the patients I got it from the literature, a short segment fixation with augmented screws and fixation of the fracture vertebrae with vertebroplasty. This basically greatly improves the construct of the thing and avoid a long segment fixation. And this may be the way to go, especially in patients who have a high risk, so that it shortens the time of surgery. So this is another patient, the short segment fixation with cement augmentation. So how is the results in the cement augmentation of the pedicle screw has been found to be very uniformly successful. Girde et al. They found in 52 patients in the follow-up of around 4 years, there is no patient of screw loosening in PMPA augmented screws. So how do you compare the biomechanical strength of commonly used cements like polymethyl methacrylate compared with the calcium phosphate cement? Calcium phosphate cement is biological, biodegradable, osteoconductive, and does not actually give any exothermic reaction at the time of delivery. So hence, the biological cements like calcium phosphate, calcium triphosphate, hydroxyapatite phosphate cements have been increasingly tried. The biomechanical strength of a PMPA screw, of a calcium phosphate screw, is comparatively around 100 times more, 100% more than the normal screw. However, the augmented screw with the PMPA has found to have 147% more than the normal screw. So both calcium phosphate augmented and PMPA augmented screws have a significant improve in the pull-out strength of the screws. So, however, whenever you try to use a cement, the main concern that basically is whether the cement can leak. The leakage can be into the local area, into the discal area, into the spinal canal, or into the commonly into the perivertebral area, and sometimes it can embolize into the pulmonary system. So, this is one of the early studies they have studied with a CT scan of the local part and the X-ray of the X-rays of the chest in 98 patients of around 474 screws. They found that the leakage of the cement is seen in around 94% of the patients. So it's very common, but none of these things are significant. And in 4 people, there is asymptomatic pulmonary cement emboli has been seen. So while the cement leakage is very common, this very often is not symptomatic or has any kind of a sequelae in this patient. So it is very safe. However, the best way to reduce the cement leakage is to deliver the cement whenever this cement is being delivered under a continuous flow. Especially this is required to avoid any kind of a high volume leakages that can cause, can be of any consequences. So other alternative, if you really want to avoid a cement, would be expandable screws. So in another study, Pinera et al. They found that PMPA augmented screws in a prospective study in patients over 70 years, they found it to be very useful. In 23 patients, in a follow-up of around 20 to 49 months, they found no instrumentation failure. However, as reported in some other studies, 3 of these patients have a deep-seated infections. So infection is a concern. It's been reported in several other studies, both in orthopedic and as well as in spine surgery, that PMPA cement can have possibly is a chances of a deep-seated infection. However, the other risk in the patients with PMPA polymethyl methacrylate augmented screws is revision of the surgery can be very challenging in these patients. To avoid all this, there's a concept of the development of hydroxyapatite, which is a basic ingredient of the bone. Augmented screws have been started for the osteoporotic fractures, both in extremities and as well as in the spine. So the advantage of hydroxyapatite is an osteoconductive material, is a bioabsorbable. There is a better and early integration of screw bone matrix into the integration of the screw into the surrounding bone matrix. In a 34 patients, they found that none of the patients have any kind of a instrumentation failure by Jong et al. It is all this and all 34 patients underwent surgery involving the lumbar spine. They try to understand not only just about the instrumentation failure, but also about the screw angle. They found that there's less chances of angular displacement of the screw, less chances of subsidence when used along with interbody fusion, and there's less loss of lumbar lordosis. So hydroxyaptated screws have been found to be very useful in these patients. And biomechanically, the screws are being found to have a strength of around 100% more than a conventional pedicle screw at 12 months. So this is the advantage of a hydroxyaptated screws. They are biologically compatible, biodegradable, osteoconductive, and the matrix at the bone screw has been replaced. Is been very well replaces the normal fibrous membrane that forms around the bone and the implant. So by micro CT analysis, they have found that the normal average contact area of the screw is around 57% in a normal screw, and compared to 96.6% with hydroxy-coated screws. And further, when they try to remove a hydroxyapatite coated screw, we find that very many times the hydroxyapatite coating is also being integrated into the normal bone. It tells that there's a better integration of the screw bone matrix with hydroxyapatite coated screws. And the revision of these patients is much easier compared to a patient who had a cement augmented screws. So biomechanically, how do you compare different kinds of cements that have been techniques, augmented screws technique between a bone cement, hydroxyapatite coated screws, calcium phosphate augmented screws? It has been found that hydroxyapatite coated screws are possibly when compared with axial pullout strength. Axial pullout strength is the load required when axial force is constantly applied to the vertebrae when the load at which the failure occurs. So that is the axial pullout strength. The axial pullout strength of hydroxyapatite coated screws is comparable to that of a calcium phosphate screws. However, PMPA is found to be 60% strength of PMPA is around 60% more than the normal conventional pedicle screw fixation. So the best strength is by polymethacrylate cemented screws, and compared and followed by that of a calcium phosphate augmented screw or a hydroxyapatite screws. So how do you make this? Is another study by Kashi et al. Where they try to review for the first time in the literature, because whenever you talk about a posterior surgery, the decompression of the neural structure is an indirect decompression. However, some people have a severe deficits, including bladder involvement. And is there any role when you try to do these patients differently with anterior surgery, and somebody has a severe deformity because you don't want to have a maximal corrective forces? Is there any role for posterior surgery with osteotomy compared with the posterior spinal fusion techniques? The three techniques: anterior surgery, posterior surgery with osteotomy, and posterior spinal fusion with decompression, have been studied for the first time in the literature by Kashi et al. In 2013 in 88 patients. They found that there is no significant neurological difference in all three groups. So it basically tells that direct neural decompression is not required in patients with osteoporotic fractures, osteoporotic fractures of the lumbar spine. So indirect decompression by means of posterior surgery is supposed to be useful. However, people who have an osteotomy have found to have a significant blood loss. So the best minimally invasive option would be a posterior spinal fusion with decompression if combined with a vertebroplasty is the least invasive procedure for this patient. So anterior surgery does not have a great role in patients with osteoporotic lumbar fractures with neurological deficits. Expandable screws have been in vogue over the last couple of decades. However, their use has been limited mostly to some parts of Europe. This been in this one study with 16 patients with more than around 76 years of mean age, of unstable thoracolumbar fractures. They found no intraoperative fractures, and they found no instrumentation failure um, by Isher et al. So another study of 2-year follow-up by Gazeri et al., they found in 31 patients with a mean age of 61 patients, 2 patients have required a revision at 2 years. So, however, they felt that the results of being has been comparable to that of a cement augmented screws. However, and the disastrous results with cement extravasation can be useful. So this is one example wherein a short segment expandable screws with a local support expandable bone thumb has been used with a good success. So, however, to improve further the construct, expandable screws have been used with cement augmentation. This is the first study wherein Yu et al. Have been combined the expandable screws with cement augmentation. They found that in cement augmented expandable screws have the highest amount of maximum pull-out strength compared to of around 59% over the normal screws, and is quite higher than the normal expandable screws are a segment augmented pedicle screws. So to conclude, the right selection of the screw design and the technique has been very important for success of this patient. And newer technique, newer screw designs are techniques like hydroxy coated screws, cemented screws, expandable screws have greatly improved the success in these patients. And minimally invasive techniques can be used with less surgical risk, especially somebody has a lot of surgical risk. It can reduce the amount of surgical time. So with further developments of the biologics and better understanding of the biomechanical properties of implants, hopefully in future we can further reduce the instrumentation failure in these patients. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, sir. Yeah.
Sir, Sridhar sir.
Yes, sir. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Please, you are the chairperson, sir, for this session.
Sir, very good lecture anyway, but I'm not getting this.
Am I audible to you?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Sir, I'm not getting camera to my side. I don't know why.
Is it?
I think Dr. Sheshadri Shekhar has to unmute himself.
Unmute.
Yes,
Yeah, he's
I
not
unmuted now.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got it now. I'm audible now, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
I'm able to hear you. Well, yeah.
Sir, very nice lecture anyway, but
Thank you.
sir, how do you select cases for surgery?
As I told you,
surgery is the only option you have, but
Yeah,
kyphoplasty.
surgery, as I told you, surgery is basically required in patients who have a neurological deficit.
Okay.
Somebody has a persistent pain following a percutaneous procedure like the vertebroplasty or a kyphoplasty. And some people, they have a persistent pain which has been there even after the conservative treatment, that tells that there is a significant spinal instability. And in this patient, we may need to correlate again with the radiological kind of evaluation to understand whether there is any kind of a coexisting ligamentous injuries or any kind of extent of how many columns of bone have been injured, whether there is a one column, two column, or a three column injury, whether there is instability in the form of or a spondylolisthesis coexisting, because these patients very many times are elderly. They have a coexistent degenerative kind of instabilities also, especially with trauma. They can have a associated ligamentous injuries. So if somebody has a deficit, instability, gross instability radiologically, or a dislocation, they ultimately directly go for surgery. But some people, they may fail after conservative treatment. They may also end up in surgery. Some people, by preference, they want to have a quality life from the day one, because the aim of the surgery is to ambulate them in the next few days after the surgery.
Next thing is, basically they're all metabolic. Majority of them are metabolic.
Yeah.
So how do you work up the case?
So all patients, my patients, basically I do a BMD for all those patients. Whenever there is a suspected metabolic issue, I basically refer it to a physician to have a further workup. Otherwise, all these patients, when the BMD is low, they basically will be put on teriparatide. So if somebody has a very severe deficit, then only we'll try to operate immediately for a deficit. Otherwise, we'll hold for 3 to 6 months, improve their nutritional bone health, and then take up for surgery.
Is there any experience of bone morphogenic proteins?
I have used it some time back, not recently, over the last 3-4 years, and I have a lot of experience during my stay in US. It definitely works wonders.
Is it DMP 2 and 7 or any other variant?
Yeah, so of late I have not used it. I used once around maybe 10 years back. So I used once with the Medtronic people. Of last 10 years, I have not used it. In US, it has been used very frequently. Even for a conventional, whenever you think that somebody has a high chance of non-fusion, let's suppose a smoker having other issues like osteoporosis, wherein you want an early kind of a fusion, they try to use it. Sometimes it is off-label use of BMP is also being used, especially abroad.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, nice lecture.
Thank you, thank you.
Very useful for the PGs.
Thank you, Dr. Raju. Excellent lecture.
Thank you.
What else next? Next speaker, Dr. M.S. Mohan, I think.
If there are no more questions, I thank you all for giving me this opportunity.
No.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
For the participants, they can ask questions.
Okay, yeah, that's like, yeah.
Let's move on to the next lecture.